The signal from nowhere. James Riley had always liked quiet places. Maybe that's why he joined the Deep Space Scout program. Flying alone through the far edges of the galaxy gave him peace. No noise, no orders, just him and the stars. His small ship, the Wanderer, drifted through the dark. It had been 23 days since his last human contact. Nothing but empty space. No signals. No signs of life. Until today. "Captain, incoming signal detected," the ship's AI announced. The voice was calm, female, and always polite. James leaned forward. "From where?" "Origin unknown. Coordinates locked. Signal is strange." He looked at the screen. It showed a small planet. No name, no data, nothing on the map. Completely unmarked. But the signal was real. It pulsed like a heartbeat. Slow, steady, and alive. James raised an eyebrow. "Should we ignore it?" The AI hesitated. "The signal appears to be artificial, but non-human." His heart raced a little. It wasn't fear. It was excitement. This was why he joined the program. The unknown. The first contact. The adventure. "Prepare landing sequence," James said. "Let's go say hello." The planet was small, covered in glowing purple trees and thick green fog. The Wanderer touched down gently on a flat stone surface near what looked like ruins. Tall broken towers, symbols carved into rock, vines wrapped around everything. "No life signs detected nearby," the AI said. James stepped out wearing a light armor suit. He held a scanner in one hand, a pulse pistol in the other, just in case. The air was thick, but breathable. The signal was stronger here, coming from under the ground. "Maybe it's a buried beacon," he whispered to himself. As he moved through the ruins, the signal got louder in his earpiece. Almost like a voice, but not in any language he knew. More like singing. Low, soft, echoing in his mind. He stepped on a strange stone circle in the middle of the ruins. The moment he did, everything changed. The stone lit up. Bright green lines shot across the ground. The trees around him shook, the air became heavy, and before he could move, he vanished. James woke up in a round room made of crystal. The walls glowed faintly. He tried to sit, but his body felt heavy, like something was holding him down. Then he saw her. She stood only 3 feet tall, but her presence filled the room. Her skin was silver blue, her eyes deep violet. Long black robes flowed around her like smoke. Her hair floated slightly as if underwater, and in her hand she held a glowing staff. "You are awake," she said. Her voice was cold, clear, and perfect English. James blinked. "What? Who are you?" "I am Zaina," she said. "You are now my possession." "Excuse me?" She raised her hand. Strange symbols floated in the air. James's arms were pulled behind him by invisible force. He struggled, but it was useless. "You are human. Rare. Powerful in spirit," she said. "You will serve me well." James stared at her, confused and annoyed. "Is this how you make friends?" Zaina narrowed her eyes. "You will not speak, unless told," she began chanting in her language. The room glowed brighter. A green energy circled James's head. He felt a strange warmth, then a sharp pain, then nothing. Suddenly everything went quiet. Zaina looked confused. The spell had finished, but James was still looking at her with the same annoyed face. "Did it work?" he asked. She frowned. "You should be under my control." "Why are you not kneeling?" he smirked. "Maybe your magic is broken." She tried again, louder, stronger. The crystal shook. Symbols burned the air. James felt the pressure. But again he stayed awake, alert, free. "What? Are you?" she asked softly. James chuckled. "Just a guy who was bored and followed a weird signal." She stepped closer, staring into his eyes. "No, you are more than that." He shrugged. "Maybe. Or maybe you're just really bad at magic." Zaina didn't smile, but something in her face softened. No one had ever resisted her before. No one had ever joked while she tried to control them. "This is interesting," she whispered. Then she waved her hand, and James dropped to the floor. He was free, but not harmed. Just trapped in the glowing room, staring at the most confusing, dangerous, and strangely beautiful alien he had ever seen. He looked at her. "So, what now?" She turned her back and walked toward a crystal doorway. "Now," she said without looking back, "we see what else you can survive." The door closed behind her, and James, now fully awake and fully alone, smiled to himself. This just got fun. The sorceress appears. James sat alone in the crystal room thinking. Nothing made sense. An alien planet, strange magic, and now a small sorceress who could bend reality with her hands. But even stranger, her magic didn't work on him. That shouldn't be possible, not for a normal human. He stood up slowly, rubbing his wrists. Whatever force had held him earlier was gone. The room was quiet now, but alive. The walls glowed gently. Symbols moved across the floor like tiny lights crawling beneath glass. Was this a prison? Or something else? James walked to one of the walls. It looked solid, but when he touched it, the surface rippled like water. He pulled his hand back quickly. "Okay. Definitely not glass," he muttered. Before he could try again, the door opened. Zaina entered. But she wasn't alone this time. 3 tall creatures followed her. They looked like living stone. Gray bodies, glowing eyes, no mouths. Guards, maybe. They didn't speak, just stood behind her like shadows. Zaina stepped closer to James, eyes locked on his. She didn't blink. "I've watched your dreams," she said calmly. James narrowed his eyes. "That's creepy. Your mind is strong. More than I expected. Even now, you resist me. Do you know what that means?" "I'm not into mind games, lady." Zaina raised a hand. The stone guards moved forward. One of them grabbed James by the arm and lifted him easily off the ground. "Hey, I thought we were done with this." "You don't understand," Zaina said. "You're not just a visitor. Here, you were chosen, brought here by the call." "What call?" "The signal." James froze. "You sent that signal?" Zaina looked at him. Her voice grew quieter. "No. The planet did." Deep below the surface of the planet, something ancient had awakened. Zaina could feel it. A pulse in the air. A whisper in the stones. For centuries, she had lived here alone, keeper of the old power, bound by duty, until the planet sent out the signal. A signal meant to call someone like him. James was taken down a long hallway. Glowing roots hung from the ceiling. The air felt colder. The light dimmed as they walked. He tried to speak, but the stone guard said nothing. Zaina walked ahead in silence. Finally, they entered a huge chamber. In the center was a floating black crystal the size of a car. It pulsed with green light. Symbols danced around it in the air like fireflies. "What is that?" James asked. Zaina turned to him. "A heartstone, the source of the planet's power. And maybe your true test." "Test?" She nodded. "Touch it." James looked at the stone. Something about it pulled at him. Not just curiosity, something deeper. Like the stone knew him. Like it had been waiting. He stepped forward slowly. Every part of him said this is a bad idea, but he reached out. His fingers touched the crystal, and the world exploded. Flashes of light. Voices in his head. Not just voices. Memories. War. Stars falling. Alien cities burning. A battle between sorcerers and machines. And then... silence. James fell to his knees, gasping. The visions faded. Zaina stood over him, watching. "You saw it," she said. "The war, the end, the curse." "What? What was that?" he asked, shaking. "Your past, or your future. It's not clear yet." "That's not helpful," he said, still catching his breath. Zaina knelt beside him. Her voice was lower now. "Gentler. You are not just human, James Riley. The Heartstone reacted to you. It only does that when it finds a match. A match for what? For power? Or destruction? He looked at her. So what happens now? He asked. Zaina stood up. Her face was calm, but her eyes burned with something. Fear or hope, he couldn't tell. Now, she said, you train. James didn't know what was worse, being stuck with an alien witch or the fact that some part of him wanted to stay. But deep down, he felt it. Something inside him had changed. And the planet wasn't done with him yet. As the door closed behind them, the Heartstone pulsed again. But this time, it pulsed in sync with James's heartbeat. The failed enchantment. James couldn't sleep. Not that the crystal room made it easy. The walls whispered. The lights never fully turned off. And his body still tingled from touching the Heartstone. But that wasn't what kept him awake. It was what he saw. The vision still flashed behind his eyes. Alien wars, broken planets, machines crawling over the ruins of cities, and a voice in the dark calling his name. Not the way Zaina said it. No. This voice was older, deeper, and filled with hate. James, you were not supposed to return. He sat up in the strange bed Zaina had given him. The sheets were soft, glowing like silk made of moonlight. Luxurious, almost too perfect. A prison with pillows. He stood and walked to the wall. This time the ripple let him pass. She was waiting. Zaina stood in the garden chamber, if you could call it that. Giant blue flowers hung from the ceiling. Floating orbs of water drifted between branches. The air shimmered with soft hums. The whole place felt alive, breathing. She didn't turn when he entered. You felt it, didn't you? She said. I saw something. Not sure what. She finally turned to face him. You saw truth. Maybe not yours, but truth all the same. Why me? He asked. Zaina walked slowly toward him. I don't know. Yet. She raised her hand. Symbols lit up around her fingers. But I intend to find out. Before he could speak, the air shifted. A circle of light formed under his feet. His body froze, not from fear, but real magic this time. He couldn't move, couldn't speak. Zaina began to chant. Her voice echoed strangely, like a chorus of ancient ghosts. The garden dimmed. The flowers closed. The floating orbs dropped and vanished. James felt pressure in his head. Images, feelings, sounds, all flooding into him at once. He saw Zaina's memories. A young sorceress, once noble, once loved. Then betrayed by her people, banished to this dying planet. Her only task now, guard the Heartstone until the end of time. Then something changed. The spell cracked, not because James broke it, but because something inside Zaina did. Her voice wavered, her hand trembled, and James, still frozen, saw it. Her eyes weren't glowing anymore, they were crying. The spell shattered like glass. James collapsed to his knees. Zaina fell too, gasping, holding her head. For a few seconds, neither of them moved. Then James looked at her. You okay? He asked, voice hoarse. She nodded slowly but didn't meet his eyes. I've never failed, she whispered. Never. James got up and sat beside her. Maybe that's a good thing. She looked at him sharply. What do you mean? He sighed. Maybe it means you're not broken. Maybe it means you're still human. Or whatever your version of that is. Zaina didn't reply. She just stared at the floor. You don't understand, she finally said. My magic is my life. Without it, I'm just a person. James finished. Welcome to the club. Later, Zaina led him to the archives. A giant, underground chamber filled with glowing tablets, floating scrolls, and orbs that played memories. She waved her hand and one orb rose in front of them. It showed a vision of the Heartstone being created. Thousands of years ago. This stone, she said, was made from the soul of a dying star. It holds memories of the universe. It chooses guardians, protectors, sometimes destroyers. Which one am I? James asked. Zaina didn't answer, but her silence said enough. He watched the orb change again. This time it showed a man who looked exactly like him, but older, darker, standing in front of a burning world. Who is that? James asked, stunned. Zaina spoke carefully. A future that was erased, or a past that never happened. James stepped back. Are you saying I've been here before? I don't know, but the Heartstone does. And now, it's reacting. Suddenly, the entire archive shook. The floor rumbled. Alarms, soft and melodic, began to ring from the walls. What's happening? James asked. Zaina's eyes widened. Someone else has awakened. They ran to the outer platform, high above the jungle-like forest. In the sky, black clouds were forming unnaturally fast. Lightning cracked silently across the sky in jagged green lines, and from the center of the storm, something was falling. A ship. No, a weapon. Zaina whispered a word James didn't recognize. Her face went pale. What is it? He asked. She turned slowly. The old enemy. The machines. They've found us. James stared at the falling object. Are they after me? No, she said. Then what? They're after the stone, and they'll kill anyone who touches it. They both looked at each other. Then, far below, the ground exploded in a pillar of green fire. The war had begun again, and James was right in the middle of it. Escape. Or stay. The explosion shook the forest for miles. Birds scattered into the green sky. Glowing leaves flew through the air like ash. Below, the heart of the jungle burned. But this was no ordinary fire. It was controlled. Alive. Something had arrived. Something with purpose. James stood on the edge of the high platform, eyes wide. He had seen war from a distance in training simulations, but this was different. This wasn't practice. This was real. A dark figure rose from the burning crater. At first, James thought it was a machine. Metal body, sharp edges, blinking lights. But as it stepped into the open, he saw something worse. It was part organic. Its skin was stretched thin over a metal frame. Wires ran under its flesh like veins. One eye glowed red, the other looked human. And when it spoke, its voice was layered, half robotic, half whisper. Target confirmed. Anomaly designation. Riley, James. Mission. Terminate. Zaina's hand shot forward. A shield of glowing light wrapped around both of them just as the creature raised its arm and fired a pulse of energy. The blast hit the barrier and shattered into sparks. Inside, she ordered. Now. James didn't argue. The platform began to collapse behind them as more blasts followed. They ran through crystal corridors, the floor shaking under every step. What is that thing? James shouted. A seeker, Zaina replied. Old world tech, created to hunt survivors from the last war. And I'm a survivor now? She looked at him briefly. No, you're something worse. They reached the core chamber, the one with the Heartstone. James turned to Zaina, breathing hard. I need to get off this planet. Zaina didn't respond. My ship, can you get me to it? She finally nodded. I can open a gate. One use only. Once you leave, you cannot come back. James paused. Wait. What about you? This is my duty. I was born to protect the Heartstone. I cannot leave. James shook his head. You'll die. She didn't flinch. Better me than the universe. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. Why are you doing this? For some glowing rock? Her voice cracked for the first time. Because the stone holds a soul, not just power, memory, life, death, everything. And it chose me? He asked. Yes, she said. But it didn't choose you to run. James looked at the gate she was opening. It shimmered like a portal made of water and wind. Through it he could see space, his ship, the Wanderer, ready. Freedom, safety, everything he wanted. Behind him, Zaina stood alone, facing the chamber doors as they started to shake under pressure. The Seeker was coming. He looked at the gate again. Then, back at her. Then the gate. His hand reached out and stopped. "Damn it," he whispered. He turned back and ran to her side. Zaina's eyes widened. "What are you doing?" Something stupid. He grabbed a nearby relic, a strange blade from the archive wall, and took position beside her. "If I'm the key to something, then fine," he said. "But I'm not leaving you to fight this thing alone." Zaina blinked slowly, and for a moment, her face softened. "I misjudged you," she said. "Story of my life," he replied. The chamber doors exploded inward. The Seeker stepped through, arms crackling with energy. "Last warning," it said. "Surrender, or be erased." James raised the blade. Zaina lifted her staff. "Try us," James said, and the final battle began. Light and fire filled the chamber. Zaina's spells bent the air itself, wrapping the Seeker in chains of pure thought. James ducked under a strike, slicing a glowing wire across the creature's side. It shrieked, more rage, then pain, but it was fast and strong, too strong. Zaina was thrown against the wall. Her staff cracked in half. Blood, not red but silver, dripped from her mouth. The Seeker raised its hand to finish her. James ran forward, yelling, slamming the relic blade into the creature's chest. Energy burst out in all directions. The Seeker roared, and then silence. James opened his eyes. He was still alive, but the Seeker was not. Its body lay still, twitching. The red glow in its eye faded. Zaina crawled to him, weak. You killed it." He shook his head. "We did." She smiled faintly. Then the stone chose right. James helped her sit up. But before they could speak further, the Heartstone lit up again, and this time it spoke. "One Seeker destroyed, 7 remain." James and Zaina stared at each other. "There's more?" he said. She nodded slowly. "They're coming. The battle for the witch." The silence didn't last long. Just moments after the Heartstone warned them, 7 remain. The sky above the jungle cracked open. Not thunder, not lightning. A rift. Pure darkness split the clouds as if something had clawed the sky from the other side. James and Zaina stood on the outer terrace of the temple, watching in disbelief as 7 beams of red light pierced the clouds and locked onto the planet like targeting lasers. "They're not just coming," James said. "They're already here." Zaina didn't speak. She didn't need to. The look in her eyes said it all. "We're out of time." Inside the archive chamber, Zaina worked quickly. Scrolls spun around her. Runes lit up. The entire room began to shift, rotating like gears in a machine long asleep. James leaned over a floating console. "You got a plan?" "No," she said. "I have desperation. And one last spell. Not comforting." "You want comfort?" she said. "There's a pillow in the cell you woke up in." He smirked despite the situation. But then he noticed something. Her hands were shaking. "What's wrong?" "This spell," she said, voice lower now, "was made to protect the stone. It bonds a guardian to it permanently. It gives power but takes life in return." "Whose life?" he asked, already fearing the answer. She didn't look at him. "Mine." James stepped back. "No, absolutely not. There's got to be another way." Zaina turned to face him fully. "There isn't. The Seekers won't stop. The Heartstone's energy draws them. If I bond myself to it, I become its shield, its voice. They'll have to kill me first. And they will," James said sharply. "You can't win alone, you don't have to." Zaina's face softened. For a brief moment she looked tired. Not just physically, but deeply, spiritually exhausted. Hundreds of years of isolation, of guarding a weapon no one remembered. Until him. "Why do you care?" she asked quietly. James didn't answer right away. He stepped close. Close enough to see the crack in her calm. close enough to finally say what had been growing inside him. Because you're not just a witch with a mission, you're a person, and maybe the only person who's ever seen me. He took her hand. I'm staying. The chamber trembled. Alarms flared across the temple. Outside, the sky turned red. 6 seeker ships entered the atmosphere, black hulls shaped like wings, glowing symbols across their surface. Each one carried something ancient, dangerous, sentinels, guardians of the old machine empire. Zaina didn't argue with James again. There was no time. Instead, she began the ritual, but this time she changed it. She rewrote the runes, split the bond, shared it. As the final symbols locked into place, a ring of energy burst from the heartstone, connecting her to James. Light flowed between them. Memories, fears, thoughts, everything. James saw her life, her pain, her loneliness. Zaina saw his childhood, his emptiness, his quiet need to matter. And now they did. To each other, the heartstone pulsed with new life. Together they stood at the temple gates as the sentinels landed, and they were ready. The first sentinel struck. Its body was pure obsidian, limbs like razors, voice like a dying wind. Return, the vessel, it said, or be erased. James stepped forward. Come get it. The battle that followed shook the continent. Zaina cast storms of light. James, now partially linked to the heartstone, moved faster than thought. He struck with the relic blade, now burning green with living energy. But for every sentinel they defeated, another descended. The 6th came like a falling star, smashing through the temple walls. The power they were using, it wouldn't last. Zaina began to falter. Her body burned with overload. The bond was taking its price. She fell to her knees. James caught her just before she collapsed. Don't you dare die now, he whispered. She smiled weakly. I already did. A long time ago. He held her close. Then live again with me. The heartstone pulsed once more. James did the unthinkable. He placed her hand on the core and placed his on hers. Heartlink. Complete, the stone said. A wave of energy exploded outward, vaporizing the sentinels in a single blast of light. Silence returned. But the cost was immediate. Zaina was still, barely breathing. James carried her back to the chamber. The stone was silent now. Dim. Sleeping. But as he laid her down beside it, her eyes fluttered open. You stayed, she whispered. He smiled through tears. You cursed me, remember? Worked, didn't it? She passed out in his arms, still alive. Barely. But alive. Outside, the red sky faded. The ships were gone. For now. But in deep space. Something else moved. Not machine. Not magic. Something older. A creature made of time and memory, wrapped in silence. And it had only one thought as it watched the heartstone flare once more. He is bonded. The cycle has failed. Heart over magic darkness, but not death. Zaina drifted in a dream, caught between worlds. She saw stars being born, then torn apart. She saw herself floating alone for centuries, a silent guardian. And now, she saw him, James, the one she had cursed, the one who stayed. In the darkness, something whispered to her, he is more than a man, and you are no longer a witch. Then, light. Zaina woke with a sharp breath. The crystal chamber was quiet. James sat beside her, his back against the wall, eyes closed, breathing steady. He looked exhausted, broken even, but when he heard her move, he opened his eyes and smiled. Hey, he said softly. She tried to sit up. He helped her. Everything felt different. The bond, the room, the planet itself. Something had shifted. What happened? She asked. We survived, James said. Barely. She touched her chest. The heartstone was no longer glowing, but she could feel it inside her like a second heartbeat. It fused with us, she whispered. Fully? Yeah, James nodded. And now the fun part. Zaina frowned. What? Figuring out why the hell the universe seems terrified of us. They returned to the archives. Only this time the heartstone reacted differently, not just glowing but showing visions without command. Ancient ones. The first image, a group of tall beings made of golden light, the architects, the creators of the heartstone. Zaina gasped. They're real. The vision changed. The architect stood before something monstrous. A being made of black time dripping with gravity. It had no face, only a voice that echoed across space. You gave them choice. Now they will choose destruction. The architects split their power into stones, into keys, and they scattered them across the stars. The heartstone was one, and James, he had been a key before, in another cycle, another universe. Zaina stared at him. You've done this out before. James didn't deny it. I think I died doing it, she whispered, and you came back. Because the stone remembers. Outside the temple, storms gathered again, not from seekers, not from machines, but from time itself. The bond had awoken something even Zaina didn't understand. We need answers, she said. Where? James asked. To the Well of Echoes, she replied. The Well of Echoes was hidden beneath the oldest tree in the forest, a silver tree taller than the sky, its roots dug into the bones of the planet. Only 2 people could open the gate, a bonded pair. As James and Zaina stepped into the clearing, the tree's bark cracked and unfolded like a door. Inside was a tunnel of memories. They walked in silence. Visions flickered on the walls. Old wars, broken gods, people who looked like James, but weren't him. And then, a voice. You should not exist. They turned. A figure stood at the far end of the tunnel. Human in shape, but made of shifting sand and starlight. It had no face, no form, only presence. Who are you? James asked. The figure didn't answer. Instead, it pointed at Zaina. You turned the key. You woke him early. Zaina stood tall. He saved us. For now, the figure replied. But his purpose is not peace. James stepped forward. Then tell me what it is. You are a breaker of cycles, the voice said. When all things repeat, you are the variable. It leaned closer. You are not meant to be a hero. You are meant to be the end. The tunnel collapsed. James and Zaina fell back into reality. Gasping, they were outside again, but the sky had changed. A crack ran across the heavens, like glass ready to shatter. Zaina whispered, It's happening. What is? The final cycle. Back at the temple, the heartstone flared one last time. A final message. You must choose. To protect the stone, or destroy it. There is no third path. James looked at Zaina. What if I destroy it? Then, all knowledge, all power, all memory of the old universe dies with it. And if I protect it? Zaina met his eyes. Then you become its last guardian. You live forever, but alone. Even without me, James felt his heart break at that. That's not living. Zaina placed her hand on his. Then choose something else. Choose us. Suddenly, a ship appeared in the sky. His ship, the Wanderer. The AI inside activated. Emergency recall. Escape, now or be erased with the planet. The planet was dying. The power of the bond had cracked its core. Everything was falling apart. They had one chance. James stood in front of the portal. Freedom again. But this time he didn't hesitate. He looked at Zaina and he destroyed the control panel. The gate closed. We ended here, he said. Together. Zaina smiled through her tears. You stubborn, cursed man. He kissed her forehead. You cursed me first. The curse that became love. The ground trembled like a dying heartbeat. The sky, once full of stars, had torn apart like shattered glass. Above, space itself flickered, cracks of void swallowing the light. Zaina looked up as fragments of the sky bled down like burning rain. The planet was ending. Not because of war, not because of enemies, but because the bond they had created out a union of love, will, and cosmic memory was never meant to exist, and yet it did. James stood with her at the edge of the crystal chamber, the heartstone pulsing weakly behind them. The relics of the temple crumbled. Great towers fell like forgotten giants. Vines burned. The wind whispered strange words, languages from other worlds long dead. This was never just about power, Zaina said softly. I know, James answered. It was about us. Deep inside the heartstone, a voice awoke. Not a warning this time, not prophecy, but a choice. Guardian protocol, final sequence. One soul may remain. One soul may carry the memory. Choose. Zaina turned to him, eyes wide. They want one of us to survive, she whispered. No, James said. They want one of us to forget. If one of them entered the stone alone, it would survive the collapse. Sealed in the core of a newborn star, it would carry memory, magic, and soul. But the other would fade, completely. Every word, every feeling, every kiss. Erased from the universe. Zaina stepped forward. I'll go. You'll forget. You'll be free. James caught her wrist. No. James. I'd rather remember a love that's gone than live free in a world where you never existed. He looked into her eyes, fierce and soft all at once. You taught me how to feel. How to fight. How to matter. I'm not giving that up. Not even for peace. Zaina's voice broke. Then we both die. James smiled. Then let's do it together. They turned to the stone. It was cracking, light spilling out like the core of a sun. James reached for it with one hand. Zaina placed hers on top of his. The moment they touched it, the world exploded in silence. No pain, no fire, just memory. They saw each other's lives again, clearer this time. James as a child, lost, lonely, always looking up at the stars, wondering if he mattered. Zaina as a girl, training alone in a ruined palace, learning spells that made her strong but not whole. They saw the day they met. The curse, the resistance, the laughter, the slow, strange friendship, the impossible love. And they saw the seekers, the battle, the bond, the refusal to abandon each other. They had rewritten fate, and now they were writing the end. Or the beginning, when the planet died, no scream was heard, only light, pure, blinding, endless. Then a star was born, a single point of golden fire in the middle of nowhere, its orbit surrounded by fragments of a broken world. It spun quietly, peacefully. But if you listened closely, very closely, you could hear something in its light. Heartbeat, a whisper, two voices, laughing. Years passed, centuries. A new scout ship picked up a signal, a soft, melodic pulse from the center of the galaxy. Captain Lena Rayner leaned forward on her console. It's not natural, she said. Origin unknown, like it's calling. Her co-pilot stared at the data. It's singing. On screen, the new star pulsed. In the data was a message, repeating old human code, simple words. Love is the only magic that changes fate, and beneath it, tell our story. And so they did. The legend of the cursed alien sorceress who tried to enslave a human, and the man who loved her anyway.